The Sharks fight back from 90-0 down to beat Ulster. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. The Sharks had plenty of the ball in the opening few minutes, but errors from them letting Ulster off the hook. Then Ulster, begin to kind of start to dominate. So they're looking, to turn that Sharks defence. Clever little kick in behind from Jack Murphy. Doesn't kind of bounce their way. And, but they do actually strike from the dropout. It goes over the line, gets dotted down. Then Stockdale, he breaks the line out wide on the right, then cuts back inside. He goes close before he's hauled down. It's recycled and then sent wide where Murphy goes over. He can't convert his own try. It's 5-0. Sharks then, they come forward from the restart, attacking on the edge of the 22. A ball out the back, but there's just no one there. Ball goes to ground, kicked downfield by Doak, and there's just a big chase from both teams. Khaleesi gets there first, but then Stockdale arrives, turns the ball over and sends Postlethwaite over to score, converted for 12-0. Ulster then have the Sharks scrum going backwards at a rate of knots. Everything at this point going their way. Then they pin the Sharks in their own half, making them fight for all of their exits. And it was basically like, it was complete mirror half to half, because that's what Sharks then were doing to Ulster in the second half. Another little kick in behind, and Ulster swarm to win a penalty. They decide to go to the corner. Sharks do well to halt them all, and then they turn it over as Ulster try to move it, but the ball comes off the feet. Lack of accuracy from Ulster there. Sharks then beginning to work their way back into the game. They take a line out quickly in their own half. They thump a kick downfield. Stockdale gets there, but he's a little kind of lackadaisical, with it under pressure, and only manages to just about put it out of play over a Sharks player's head. And they were kind of speculating on commentary whether you could actually see the guy, because the sun would have been in his eyes at that stage. Good position for the Sharks, but Ulster turn it over through Cock, who tackles, and then Jackals. They go to Witt. Timoney puts Stockdale into space. He's then got support either side, but he decides to actually chip it over the cover. Like, that's his go-to move, right? But he does regather and then offloads out of the tackle to put Doak over, converted for 19-0. Sharks hit back. They move the ball into 22. Jason Jenkins on the burst. Then they go close. Then they shift wide, nice long pass from Jaden Hendricks out to Mampimpi to go over in the corner. Stockdale goes to the bin for a cynical offside in the build-up as well. Conversions missed, 19-5. Ulster then come forward now, Cock fights through, tackle to stay on his feet just way longer than you would expect. But, that's the type of player he is. He's very kind of gnarly, very hard to actually put down. They then recycle the ball, but then Esther Hazen gets over it to win a penalty for the Sharks. Sharks then attack off a scrum, and they get Ethan Hooker free down on the right wing, but McCluskey gets in there to turn it over. And then, Werner Cock is just clearing out like a kind of second row enforcer in there. Sharks, though, win the ball back. They have numbers wide left, and they get Mampimpi over again in the same corner. We have a team mode check for a possible forward pass, and it's ruled no try. It's forward out of the hands from Fassi, and absolutely no need for that. Like, it was, all he had to do was give a simple pass, and like they were in, they had the numbers there. But yeah, that chalked off half time, 19 points to 5, but certainly warning signs for Ulster there that the Sharks are beginning to find space. Then Sharks, they lose Vincent Koch. He's taken off the break. He was down like a few times during the first half, getting treatment, really putting his body on the line for the team. Sharks then, they get their maul moving. It's almost killed by Izuchuk, who works his way through the middle, almost gets his hands on the ball, but Jaden Hendricks does really well to get the ball out of there. They move it, they work it into 22. It takes a big effort to get there, and then one ruck, they're just not quite on it. Herring gets in there, turns it over, and Ulster can kick clear. But this is the start of a kind of prolonged period of massive pressure by the Sharks on Ulster. They work it back into 22. Esther Hazen with a good carry, but Pimpy making ground out wide. Then the forwards work within a few metres before Ulster defence forces a knock on. Then nice little kick in behind from the Sharks. Stockdale dives in it, but Sharks get over to win a penalty to go to the corner. They go off the top to Esther Hazen, but there's a knock on there. But again, all warning signs for Ulster. It's just one-way traffic at the minute. Then Sharks come again, making great ground at 22, and Ulster defence finally gives way. Jacobs with a strong carry. Then it was Vincent Chichukwu, right? Gets over under the post. It's converted for 19 points to 12. Then Ulster just soaking up so much pressure. You feel like they need to offer something down the other end, because there's only one outcome of these kind of games, when it's just all one way. Sharks now on top of the scrum as well. Both front rows have changed, and that's really helping them to just keep that pressure on all the time. There's no real out for Ulster. Then carries from Hooker and Jacobs get the Sharks back into 22. They move it quickly back inside, and Julius just storms over to score in between the sticks, converted by Hendricks to tie it up at 19 all. Then we have a loose ball, breaks Stockdale. It was Koch, I think was Werner Koch, that is, competing really well in the air. The loose ball gets to Stockdale. He just cuts straight through the Sharks. He's into 22, decides to try a little kick, in behind and try backing his pace to get there. But he actually hits one of the Sharks, and then they're able to clear. He did run away from his support, so there wasn't kind of the option to take the contact and recycle, but he you don't know, he could have maybe backed himself to try and beat them. I'm not sure where he would have there, but yeah, not many chances for Ulster, and that was a decent one. Then Raynaud rolling away right in front of the post. Hendricks pops it over for 22-19, and just what a comeback from the Sharks to lead at that stage. Then they run down the clock. Ulster do come forward looking for some kind of score, but the Sharks, there was one chance where Stockdale again, he's got the ball, out kind of on the 5 metre line out wide left. He has Zach Ward with him as well. He decides to pass to Ward, and Ward is right up against the touchline, and the ball, the pass is kind of a little bit behind him, so takes the ball, and then as he's kind of adjusting himself, then he gets hit. He goes into touch, and that was kind of the last chance they had. Then Sharks turn the ball over. They don't give it back up. They run the clock down. Brilliant win for them, 22 points to 19. So let's have a look at the stats, and then we'll have a chat about each of the teams. So let me pull the stats up here on the official site. Okay, so first of all, looking at attack, let me refresh it because it's basically saying that there was no tries scored in the game, which obviously isn't right. Let's see if it's better now. Okay, so 3 tries each in the game. Ulster were 3 in the first half. Sharks one in the first half and two in the second. But Ulster didn't score a point in the whole second half. And at home, just not good enough. There was like a massive difference between the benches of the two teams, but still in that kind of first quarter of the second half, Sharks generally not great, kind of between 40 and 60 minutes. And that's where you felt Ulster could have won the game. But again, they just didn't offer anything at all. Possession then 45% to 55%. So Sharks on top there. Clean breaks 8 each. Defenders being 21 to 26. So Ulster, better conversion rate for them. Offloads 9 from Ulster, 11 for the Sharks. Onto defence then, territory 42% to 58% to the Sharks, and that was mainly like the second half. The Sharks were so dominant because in the first half at one stage Ulster had like 70% possession and territory, but then Sharks, last kind of 15 minutes and a half worked their way back into the game, then just dominated the second half. Number of tackles then 140 for Ulster, 108 for the Sharks, 26 mixed tackles to 22. So Ulster 80% tackle success. Not as good as maybe they expect it to be, but better than the Sharks down at 77. Turnovers 1-7 each. Then kicks retained. This is one area where through the game Ulster were better, winning that stat 7-2. But not enough in the second half. I thought their kicking game in the first half was on point. Second half, very wayward and kind of almost just inviting the Sharks back onto them. Penalties conceded then, very rare. This like 6 for Ulster and just 2 for the Sharks. Normally you concede 6 penalties in the game, and that's something to kind of pat yourself in the back about, But when the opposition only concede 2, that's crazy. Well done the Sharks on that one. On to players then. So 9 points in the boot of Jack Murphy and 7 from Hendrickson for the Sharks. Both of them pretty decent from the tee. Dokum and Pimpy with a try each, but it's one of those games where no multiple try scores. Successful carries then, Nick Timney with 6, Andre Esterhazen with 7. Timney decent in a losing side. Like obviously a lot of decent performances from Ulster, especially in the first half where they were dominant. But you've got to give it to the likes of Esterhazen. I thought Ethan Hooker as well. Lekanyuam looked decent as well at times. And he is a class player, but I'd still, again, I talked about it before, I'd love to see, Hooker back in there in the centres with Esterhazen, because they just make, as a combination, that they seem to work really well together. Clean breaks then, Jacob Stockdale with 3 to Pimpy's 2. And it really was, the first half was the Stockdale show, and he almost made the game the Stockdale show if he had have finished off that break there in the second half. And defenders beaten then, Stockdale was 7, Jordan Hendrickson with 4. Then meters made 172 for Stockdale. It's crazy numbers. And Ethan Hooker, like 76 is really good, like from Hooker as well. Playing out there on the right wing, but also coming in to into midfield as well. And I like that about him. He doesn't just stick out there waiting for the game to come to him. He goes looking for it. Offloads then, Brian O'Connor with 2 for Ulster and Esterhazen with 2 for the Sharks. Onto defence then, Timney 17 tackles for Ulster and Oxenche 14 for the Sharks. Maybe like the scrum didn't go his way today, but I thought, in terms of, especially towards the end of the first half and the beginning of the second half as well, really tough carries into traffic from him, obviously making a lot of tackles as well, standing up defensively as well for his team, and that kind of impetus. The guy never takes a backward step, into contact as well. Turnovers 1, then 2 for Rob Herring, 1 for James Venter, and Herring, vital turnover there in the second half, and it could have been, a game winner, except that the problem again was Ulster, they were just kicking clear and then they were setting to defend again. There was no out for them at all, so winning the turnovers is great, but they needed, better strategy, better kind of kicking game, I think, to make sure that, they were actually finding grass and they were turning the Sharks' defence. They didn't do it in the second half at all. First half, they were turning the Sharks' defence. The chase was, right up there in their faces as well. In the second half, they were just so tired from that defensive effort that it was just desperate. Get it clear, mostly get it off the field, not that far either, generally not too far outside their own 22, and you're just inviting really the Sharks to win the game from there. But let's talk about the teams a bit more in depth. So we start with the home team, Ulster. So really start the game, get themselves 19-0 up, and then they can't add anything onto that. And, no matter how well you start the game, unless you can keep that scoreboard ticking in the second half, you're inviting the other team to come back and do what the Sharks did today. You have to, have something going the other way, whether it's, a couple of penalties or something. Like in the end, we don't know, obviously, because I always talk about, the fact that you can't just decide on one thing that, if they had got this many points more, then they would have won. Because if the Sharks had needed maybe a try towards the end rather than a penalty, they would have gone for the try and maybe gotten it. But if Ulster had been able to maybe, ping over a couple of penalties in that second half, they certainly would have given themselves a better chance to win the game. Just trying to hold on, especially when it went to 19-12. Trying to hold on from there. Just didn't feel like, they had enough to go for, the remainder of the game to actually hold the Sharks out. And it proved to be so. And a really game with two halves for them. The, scrum brilliant in the first half. Not so much kind of the last 25 minutes or so once the front rows changed. I thought overall the line-out wasn't great for them either, so that's definitely something for them to work on, and also I felt in terms of the work of the breakdown in the second half, yes, they were able to turn the ball over a few times and stuff like that, but I just felt like on their own ball, they weren't clearing out as quickly as maybe they could have, and because of that, then the kicks were rushed and stuff like that as well. A lot of pressure on them there too. So definitely lots of work ons for Ulster, and just game management, especially second half. It's a young kind of pairing there at halfback for them, and yeah, they're going to learn from this. And again, I talked about Ulster. I think next season is when we're going to see them kind of coming to the fore a little bit more. Big blow to their chances of making the top 8. And honestly, at this stage, I don't think they're going to make it. I think they needed to win this game to put themselves in position to potentially make the top 8. Having lost this now, I would say, that's their chance gone to make that top 8 at this stage. Obviously, other teams may slip up and they may come back into the reckoning, but in terms of, looking at the games they have left, I don't think they're going to get there on their own steam. It's going to have to, take, a series of results really from other teams to get them into the top 8. So at this stage, I'll probably rule them out from the top 8, unless maybe after the next round of games things will completely change again, because it's been so close this year. But onto the Sharks then. Sharks now are a team that are finishing with great momentum. Themselves and the Bulls, they're the two teams that really are coming into the last few rounds, with, they're winning important games. They're winning away from home. They're getting the results, even coming, from behind to get those results as well. And all of that is the kind of stuff that you need to win knockout rugby. And, at this stage now, they should have that home quarter final for themselves. And now, with the Bulls putting pressure on Glasgow as well ahead of them, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that they could, pick one of those two as well if either falter in the last couple of rounds. But certainly they're going to be at home in the quarter final. And, once they get into a semi-final, I think the problem with the Sharks team is just the fact that, being able to be switched on all the time and perform up to, you look at that team and you think that team should be winning the league. They're so good. Like, the only other team looking at on paper that you put against them would be Leinster, but teams like, the likes of the Stormers, then Munster and Glasgow have proved that, you don't win this league on paper. Each of those teams came into the playoffs with momentum and with talent as well. I'm not saying that they're not talented teams, especially that Glasgow team that won last year. But having that momentum going into the playoffs is hugely important. Sharks seems to have that at the moment. They've got 2 more rounds, though, to maintain that going in as well. And again, so much can change during that period as well. But I back them now to, have a home quarter final. And, nobody's going to want to go to them in that quarter final. That's going to be one of the positions that teams are going to want to avoid. But you look at that top 4 and it's just all quality up there as well. You wouldn't want really to go away to any of those teams. But yeah, brilliant result from the Sharks. Ulster, again, I think a team for next season, but good signs from them overall in this kind of last little part of the season, that there is something better to come, to come after the kind of the break and into next season from them. But let me know what you think down in the comments.